Are you really living on the planet you think you are? The earth is not one, but many worlds, but we see and perceive only the one where chaos and fear rule, because we are experiencing a crisis of personal power. Science has given us knowledge, but has not explained how to get out of the crisis. The people of knowledge, who guarded the ancient wisdom, taught that we see the world on earth for the perception of which our personal power is sufficient. Therefore, in order to get out of the crisis and understand that this is an anomalous phenomenon, we need to learn to see all the worlds available on earth. All that is needed for this is to accumulate personal power. People of knowledge say that personal power is a feeling of good fortune and happiness, an inner well-being that must be found and cultivated. The greater a person's supply of personal power, the deeper he is able to feel his connection and unity with the earth at a deep level. It follows that we once began to harm each other and the earth because at that moment we ceased to understand each other and the earth due to our weakness and crisis of personal power. But the truth is that having accumulated a sufficient amount of personal power, any person is able to see that the world of crisis in which we live is an unspoken agreement of energetically depleted people to perceive things in a certain way. But neither the way of perceiving the world nor the world of crisis in which we live are the only possible ones on earth. This is what people of knowledge teach. Here, you may most likely have a fair question. How can this be true? After all, science has long ago measured, described, and established a clear order of things. It says nothing about many worlds, about personal power, and unequivocally states that the earth and the world exist in the only possible version. In fact, this is not quite true. In 2020, psychology professor Dennis Profit published a book, Perception: How Our Bodies Shape Our Minds. In the book, the professor argues that our perception of the world depends on the state of our body. For example, when we are tired, hungry, or carrying a heavy load, distances seem longer and the slopes of hills and mountains seem steeper. Thus, science records the fact and recognizes that perception is not objective by nature. It changes along with the state of the body. At the same time, the people of knowledge taught that the health of the physical body and its sensations are external manifestations of the level of one's personal power. And if this level changes, then the surrounding world changes along with it. In other words, the perception of the world is directly related to personal power, and science only records the consequences of changes in its supply. Meanwhile, saying that science alone is not capable of helping a person overcome the crisis of personal power in which he found himself due to an energy-consuming lifestyle, we were not mistaken. People of knowledge taught that just as a person consists of a body, soul, and spirit, so true, knowledge is built on three foundations: science, philosophy, and religion. Only their unity gives a person the key to managing personal power, namely, the ability to accumulate, use, and through it, see the many worlds existing in parallel on earth. By learning these worlds, a person gains inner well-being and becomes a man of knowledge. At one time, science claimed that the earth was flat. Then the idea that the earth was shaped like a sphere took hold among the masses. But these images reflect not just a change in paradigms, but different worlds perceived by people of knowledge. The flat world is a reflection of a limited consciousness that lives exclusively in the body and emotions. Thanks to the accumulation of free energy and personal power, one with such a consciousness is able to develop a mind that, like the sun from above, illuminates the plane of the physical and emotional world. In a magical sense, a triangle serves as a symbol of the process of going beyond the flat world, when the idea of eternal life due to the immortality of the human spirit was introduced by people of knowledge through education into the everyday life of a mortal person who characterizes himself by body and intellect or soul. knowledge of the Spirit allowed a person to accumulate personal power and learn to go beyond the limitations of the plane of materialism. The image of the earth in the form of a sphere is a consequence of knowledge about the multivariance of worlds on earth and the infinity of manifestations of the Spirit. Light in the darkness spreads in all directions at once and simultaneously, that is equally, as the spirit of man with the necessary reserve of personal power is able to manifest itself in any form and in any of the worlds of the earth. The radiation of light is a sphere, and therefore it can be said that the sphere symbolizes the all-pervading presence of the Spirit. Thus, the earth became spherical. The geocentric system, in which the earth is the center of the universe, is a reflection of one of the worlds where the material world predominates, and which reflects the consciousness of man living exclusively externally. The heliocentric system, in which the sun is the center of the solar system, is the knowledge of the world brought to science by seers, in which the Spirit is the center of human life, and the members of his body personify the planets rotating around the sun. The heat and energy of the sun reach the planets through the volume of the space, which was previously called ether, just as the life currents of the Spirit reach the human body to maintain life in it through the human soul. You will probably think, another beautiful theory, but what does this have to do with me? What is personal power and why do I need it? It's simple. Personal power is what determines the level of your life. The more personal power you have, the clearer and more harmoniously you perceive the earth and the world on it. And that means the better your reality becomes and the happier your life is. Any sane person strives for happiness and well-being. Of course, when working with new ideas, it is necessary to interact with those for whom such ideas have become part of their lives, but such people may not be around. By the way, for this purpose, we created the Three Suns Closed Club, in which, together with the participants, we touch upon the unknown sides of both the spiritual nature of man and the unsolved mysteries of the world and the cosmos. It is the Three Suns Closed Club that helps to find like-minded people and begin to perceive the world better, clearer, and deeper. In the Closed Club, we publish all necessary information, links to films, books, scientific articles, etc. that will help you to get personal enlightenment. In case you want to join us in the Three Suns Closed Club and learn to perceive new ideas and begin to develop magical thinking that will enrich your life, we will leave a link in the description of the video. It is impossible to say in words what personal power is. Don't be surprised. You can't explain how exactly you hear. You just hear. The same is true for personal power. It is impossible to describe it, but you can feel its presence and register its action. However, an attempt to explain personal power is made, among others, by Nagualism, magical knowledge described by the mystical writer Carlos Castaneda. But in order to describe something, you need the corresponding knowledge and concepts through which it can be done. If a person has neither knowledge nor categories of thinking, then there is no ability to perceive and describe what he is dealing with. Sincere and careful study of Nagualism enriches the knowledge of the student with special magical concepts, such as will, warrior, faith, vision, challenge, impeccability, doing and not doing. By letting them into life, a person not only begins to understand what personal power is, but also learns to accumulate and use it. According to Nagualism, any person is capable of revealing their magical nature, which is hidden by their everyday perception. Understanding the magical nature gives a person knowledge and makes them a warrior or a magician, and then a man of knowledge. An ordinary person perceives the world through their senses. A magician and a warrior perceive worlds through their personal power, or, in other words, their will. A man of knowledge perceives worlds on earth not only through information from the senses and will, but also through vision, the ability to perceive things in their true form. The determining link at each stage is the supply of personal power. By accumulating personal power, a person accumulates knowledge and becomes a seer or a man of knowledge. Personal power is the will that connects a person with the world. It is this that allows one to perceive the energy of the earth and interpret it in accordance with the inner knowledge. Therefore, people with different reserves of personal power see different worlds, even if they are physically in the same place. In other words, we perceive only what we have enough personal power for. That is why today's world of crisis is just one of many worlds of the earth that humanity, experiencing a crisis of personal power, is able to comprehend. In order to begin to comprehend other possible worlds here on this earth, each and every one of us needs to accumulate personal power, embark on the magical path, and learn to see. Unlike an ordinary person, a warrior hunts for power. He constantly accumulates personal power and develops his will. This becomes possible due to the revaluation of values, cleansing life of excess and bringing order to life. Through personal power, a magician interacts with the spirit, focusing on signs and instructions from the spirit. But the first step that an ordinary person must take to become a warrior is to want to become a warrior and start believing. Accepting magical ideas and connecting your life with them is an act of faith. It is faith that connects a warrior with the spirit. A warrior believes in personal power and therefore moves towards the spirit. The signs of the spirit allow the warrior to remain fluid and mobile, and most importantly, to adapt to circumstances and perceive everything not as a problem, but as a challenge. By accepting a challenge, the warrior concentrates on overcoming and thus bypasses the energy-consuming reactions and actions that are typical of an ordinary person. Not doing what is exhausting, so that, having accumulated personal power, one can do what is necessary to overcome the challenge. This is the warrior's not doing. This is how the warrior becomes impeccable. Impeccability is the most rational use of the available reserve of energy and personal power. Friends, write to us in the comments how you understand what impeccability is and how it manifests itself in your life. Through impeccability, a warrior develops his will and with its help begins to perceive new worlds on earth. In this way, he accumulates knowledge, and knowledge leads to the vision of the essence of the fact that there are countless worlds on earth, and all worlds have one source which resides in eternity itself. The warrior is connected to this source by the spirit. Therefore, the magician feels his deep connection with each world, with the earth and with humanity. He realizes that the earth is not just a planet, but a manifestation of the great mystery, which is revealed to the one who has accumulated personal power. Knowledge and personal power develop vision in the warrior, and he becomes a man of knowledge, the personification and keeper of the great mystery on this earth. A man of knowledge is one with everything. Therefore, vision allows him to become everything, having become nothing. He does not use people as brainless toys, but shares with them their stupidity, which gave rise to the crisis of personal power in all of humanity. But unlike people, the man of knowledge controls his stupidity and constantly works to return the knowledge of the eternal to people on earth. It may seem that a person has a conscience, and it is this that helps him see, make the right decisions and makes his life happy. This is not so. Conscience is a set of attitudes formed by upbringing and beliefs, which often have religious grounds. Conscience, therefore, is based not on the knowledge of one's own magical nature, but on the fear of condemnation. Constant fear exhausts a person and makes him weak-willed. In fact, it is not upbringing and conscience that determine a person, but the reserve of personal power. Conscience is a certain set of programs that a person must follow, but the fact is that someone else's trained will is capable of changing this set and controlling the conscience of someone whose will is not strong enough. Accumulating personal power, a person needs to overcome his own beliefs, go beyond their boundaries, and learn to see the earth with its diversity of worlds. Overcoming conscience does not mean becoming irresponsible or asocial. It means becoming fluid, sensible, and free from prejudice. Thanks to personal power, a person overcomes egoism and comes to a sense of the unity of life on earth, the source of the highest form of responsibility. At the same time, the development of the will itself requires the development of erudition, education, and broadening of horizons. Perceiving new worlds, a person must be able to understand and describe them. In addition, the accumulation of personal power requires from each person constant personal efforts to raise the level of morality and improve one's own character. Otherwise, the will serves base aspirations that exhaust a person and reinforce the perception of a world of crisis on earth. The earth is an extraordinary place. It is capable of opening us to many worlds. The perception of worlds changes depending on the level of personal power that a person is able to accumulate. Personal power is the will to knowledge. It is knowledge that gives a warrior vision, turning him into a man of knowledge. A man of knowledge is the true nobility, whose radiance of wisdom illuminates the path for humanity between the worlds of the earth, which are countless.